Hello, everyone. Welcome to Power Up, a podcast where we talk all about personal growth and professional development. So, no matter who you are, a student, if you're in school, in university, or any industry, we hope that we have a little something for everyone to get you where you want to be in life. This podcast is brought to you by MIDP, a leading and award-winning institute on soft skills education with presence in more than 17 countries across Asia Pacific. So, quick introduction. My name is Emellia Shariff. I'll be your host for today. And for this glorious episode 1, we will be talking about New Year, Better Me, all about skills that are most demanded in 2023, whether we like them or what do we hope to see this year in 2024. And to talk about this, we have two also glorious speakers with us. First of all, we have Shui Ang. She is an educator turned product manager, but now she is the founder and lead at Impian, Kencana. So Shui, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
It's a pleasure. And of course, we have Chuman Dave. He is the talent lead and business partner for Asia for Mars. Hi, Dave.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
When we develop all these New Year's resolutions and goals, in my experience, it's usually because of something that has happened, like a mistake I've made. Like I've learned this the hard way in 2023, and therefore in 2024, I'm gonna do my best to make sure it doesn't happen again. So I'm kind of curious, like looking back at 2023, because I would like to, talk about failures because it's normal, right? Failures is like everywhere. It's good. It's healthy. So yeah, what are some of your failures in 2023?
But I'm going to approach this question not in the context of work, because I just moved companies in 1 month plus age, so it may not be most useful. But I think attribute wise or behavior wise, one thing that I would say it's a missed opportunity was a bit of a tidak apa attitude, if I may speak Malay here a bit.
You can.
Yeah, so I think last year I got a bit comfortable with where I was. At certain times, I would like I will take longer breaks, for example. I'll go back a bit earlier just because I was on top of everything, and I moved a bit more into my own personal comfort zone for various reasons, and hence the missed opportunity. So when I was reflecting end of last year and early this year, I think what I missed last year was probably just pushing myself into doing things that are a bit more uncomfortable. I did do those things, but cukup makan, just enough, and I could have pushed myself a bit more. And I realized that my finesse in dealing with some of things that are beyond my comfort zone is not as good, simply because I took a cukup makan attitude. So that's something that I want to kind of like avoid this year, and keep that out of the radar a little bit more. Yeah.
I think it's such a tough balance, right? Because at one point you wanna explore and like expand your comfort zones, conquering new challenges and things like that. But at the same time, it's also important to take a break. So perhaps on those days you leave early. Perhaps it's okay. I'm pretty sure you want to play badminton or something, right?
Yes, I do.
So yeah, I think it's a tough balance, honestly. Like if you're ambitious at work and you kind of like have places or milestones you want to achieve, and then looking back, you always would be able to identify areas that you feel like you could do better. Yeah. I can relate to that. Shi, what about you?
Just listening to Dave, actually, I think I'm on the opposite end. When you asked the questions, the first thing that came to my mind was undervaluing my own progress. So towards the end of the year, I realized that I thought I didn't do enough, but I oversee like all the things that I've done. Like for example, I actually transitioned into a new role because I thought I felt comfortable in my previous role and I wanted a challenge. And I'm always challenging myself, so I'm very ambitious. People see me as someone who's ambitious, but I thought I didn't do enough because of the societal standards. Yeah, so I think looking back, one mistake I made is undervaluing my own progress. Like I should have just measure my own self-worth with what I have achieved instead of others' benchmark.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing what societal standards you're talking?
So I compared myself to like my peers of the same age, right? Who graduate from the same school, my friends, they are earning at least 3 times more or even 5 times more currency of like other people's and or they are in a better position they help they are in better position like managerial positions, or they have had a few properties that they are managing, either monetary wise or status. Yeah, or things that I've achieved. I have a few friends who is Forbes 30 under 30 or 35 under 35. It's like make me question like, what am I doing? Even though I set up my own non-profit, I actually tried to take up a new role, jumping into a complete question mark. But even that, I didn't feel enough.
Like one thing, like I could relate to that. It's kind of crazy because both of you are on opposite ends, but both of what you said were actually very relatable to me, and I'm sure Dave, you could relate to a bit of that as well. And one thing, like when you talk about societal standard, and as a woman, you always be like, oh, there are a lot of people my age who's like just as successful, if I can say though, or even more successful, even further in life, and they are married, they have kids, and they could do all that and more with like all of these added like extra responsibility, right? So I think it's very, very important to kind of like know what you want to achieve in the beginning of the year. So I think that could avoid that a little bit, because I always say this, like, okay, people say it's lonely at the top, right?
Yes.
Or like even if you're not at the toppest of the top, like once you get to a certain level, it's lonely because you stop getting recognition. No one comes to you and be like, Dave, great job, because you're the one telling your team like, good job, I think I learned that a couple of years back, especially during the pandemic, and I realized that moments in which I realized I did okay, or I did well, or I did terribly, is always at the end of the year when I'm doing financial audit or when I'm doing my team's performance review, and then I realize, hey, we actually did quite a bit this year. Well done, But throughout the year, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't do enough. So I can totally relate to that. Now it's 2024, and we're all about being better and improving ourselves. So what would you do this year to help you achieve that? Because one thing I've realized is the biggest mistakes I've made all these years is I set goals, very specific goals. Like people say set SMART goals. I do that. But then I realized that's not enough to get you where you want to be. Because what you need to decide is not the goal. It's not just that. But for me, it's also about what part of your routine you want to change. What micro habits do you want to have, or you want to start adopting, so you get to achieve that goal?
If you talk about habits, I think one thing that I really want to build is an ecosystem around me. So firstly, that mindset of 1%. So I watched this video / TikTok talking about how do you improve 1% every day, right? From something as simple as making your bed, for example. So I think having that 1% mindset is very important. But how I do that is literally talking in the mirror. I don't know whether that's the best, but
Same.
I think
it's good. It's good.
Yeah. So it's a bit odd looking at yourself and then like, oh, your eyebrow is weird. But anyway, so that 1% mindset and just talking to myself is important. But I think broader, just to build my knowledge and just making smarter decisions business-wise and whatnot, is keeping my ecosystem around me. So one thing I'm doing nearly every month now, or kind of going to try and make it into a cadence, is keeping my finance guys and my business development guys into a monthly lunch session with me, just so that I can understand how they interpret things, how they see things moving, because then I can learn from their experiences. I think the best time I've learned before, once upon a time, was always in this monthly leadership team meetings. I'll always sit beside this finance person because I can always whisper in their ears and like, what does this mean? What does this mean, right? And you learn so much from that. And for me, I think that was the best experience I had in terms of business understanding, acumen, and also to help me grow that 1% every day, to have smarter conversations as well. So that's something I'm trying to focus on. Yeah.
Mine is not so much about business knowledge, but to prevent myself from falling into the trap of comparing myself to others again. So I've been journaling for years, but one question that I have added into my journaling practice is asking myself, like, how do I feel and why do I feel a certain way? And because my goal is to improve, to be better than me yesterday. So as long as, is checking in myself, am I doing things that is helping me to be better? I am, and that's enough. Yeah, so it's just that, and in addition to gratitude exercise. So one thing I think helped me like throughout the years is whenever I feel like burnout or overwhelmed, gratitude exercise helped me to like motivates me, because when you count your blessing, who has supported you, it gives you the energy. It gives me the energy to continue giving and continue serving and being better.
In a world today where everybody's getting feedback really fast, self-feedback doesn't come very fast.
Yeah.
I think this is something that I've learned in my late 20s, that self-assurance and self-recognition is very, very important. When you have like a goal, and if it's like a little bit unconventional, there will be a lot of people who will tell you that that's crazy. One thing I did until today, like something I still do until today, is I always tell myself, hey, you did a good job today. Like, I really like that. And I just shared this recently with one of my team members, and I said, you know, that recognition that you wanted your boss to tell you, the things that you wanted your mother to say to you, like your friend, whoever, those words that you wanted certain people to say to you, you try saying that to yourself. Over time, the words grow even more powerful by the day. And now, if I end the day and I say, hey, you did good today, it really means something, although nobody says it, you know? But it takes a lot of practice. It's not something that comes easy, you know? And I've also had people told me in the past, because they happen to hear me giving myself self-validation and self-assurance, they're like, that's a little crazy, you know, like oh, you're so full of yourself. But I think it's important to kind of like stay true to yourself, and I think there's no validation more powerful than what you can give yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. LinkedIn, I have identified like sort of like 10 soft skills that was most in demand in 2023. And the top 3 were management, communication, and customer service. So my first question is, do you agree? Like, in your line of work, would you describe those 3 as the most in demand or the most important soft skills in your line of work?
For me, management encompasses other things as well. Self-management, time management, project management. Ultimately, how do you manage your resources so that you can achieve like the agreed goals or the collective, so that you can complete the projects according to timeline, adhering to timeline. Yeah, so totally management. Communication, I think, is interrelated to a lot of other skills as well. So when I heard these 3, I thought problem solving is important as well, because every day is all about problem solving. But you cannot problem solve if you do not communicate with your users, customers, or beneficiaries. You need to understand their needs and wants. So I think communication is about, you know, like really listening attentively or intently, and being able to understand like what they want from us, and that understand our objective. Yeah. So that relates to customer service. Customer service is about, you know, solving problems for our customers. Yeah. So yeah, for me, I agree.
Or like listening to them as they're yelling at you.
Yeah.
I think what I could not gauge as well was the definitions of the word, like management. In my head, management, but management also sounds like leadership. But leadership is a different skill altogether.
Number 4
right?
was leadership.
So I was trying to differentiate that, and I would put leadership skills up front. And I agree with you, Shuri, completely. I think, and leadership again goes 2 parts. There's team leadership, there's also self-leadership, which is exactly what you talk about, time management, how you bring yourself up and all that, right? For me, encompasses around leadership. I feel communication is a big part, and I agree that's a limiting factor. How you storytell, how you personal brand yourself, all that. The third one that they talk about was on the customer service. It's like, I'm not too sure. I would probably shift that a bit to stakeholder management, exactly what you talk about again. I feel how we manage stakeholders, up, down, outside, internal, all that can be better. So I would stay in that ranks, but again, definitions a bit different.
Actually,
here
you didn't. Your first one was leadership, which is
also
4.
but you know, it's kind of there lah. Yeah.
Let me recap. So your number 1, you agree. Your number 1 is management. Your number 1 is leadership.
Yes.
And this is where I'm gonna like completely have a different one, because my number 1 is actually communication. And of course, in my line of work, of course we do a lot of communication, but just hear me out. I feel like no matter how good you are at your work, no matter how smart you are, no matter how amazing your strategy is, no matter how great your product is, no matter how nice and effective you are as a boss, if you can't communicate your value, if you can't communicate your ideas, they're as good as if you don't have any of those. Objectively, I wouldn't say it is more important, but I would say if I were to pick any industry around the world, like anyone, like doctors, firefighters, team leader, talent development, product management, the one similarity that you will need to be good at almost all of this work is communication. And for me, that is why I would always kind of like rank communication number one. Because to manage a project, to manage a team, to manage yourself, to lead a team, that one similarity that would allow you to do that and more and be amazing at it is actually your ability to communicate, to negotiate, and all that.
Like to stand out from the others. Communication is what make them stand out. Because I just recently was drafting a JD. We are going to hire for a product designer. And one of the top traits that we were discussing the team is communication. This person must be able to communicate effectively, internally and externally, communicate your idea, your design concept. And if the person is not able to do so, how do we know this would work? Yeah, so I totally agree when you mentioned, when I reflect on my previous application for jobs, communication is number one, like no matter what role it is.
I don't know if you've seen this. There's like this clip going around TikTok. Are we on TikTok? Are you on TikTok?
No, I'm not.
Get on TikTok, Dave. It's the trend. Are you on TikTok?
For a little while, not
Okay,
now.
so anyway, get on TikTok. But anyways, I saw this clip and it says it kind of like hurt my feelings a little bit when I saw it. But like the more I think about it, I was like, yeah, I think it's true. So it's like no matter how good you are at your work, you will not get further than the person who can communicate their value and manage their self-image and an impression in the workplace. That person will always do better than you at work. That person will always get that promotion before you. And again, I think it kind of like go together with my point that it's about communication, like it's about communicating that value. But I don't know, like what do you think about this whole thing? Because both of you manage people, both of you manage a team. So as a leader, right, how do you not fall into this trap of kind of like have this subconscious bias towards your team members who naturally can kind of like manage your perception of them really well, can communicate really well? You know, it is a subconscious bias. There's been like so many researches and papers written about this.
The first and foremost is making sure you have a concerted conversation about people, right? It's not just so firstly, the idea of if I'm a line manager and I decide everything for my team is completely wrong. That's a very traditional approach. Careers are decided, of course, by the individual, but it's concerted by many leaders, not only the line manager. So what I'm trying to get at is, firstly, having that view should be a 360 view for multiple parties. So that removes away your bias, because when you see that person day to day and working on certain things, you are getting simply one facet. So having that conversation is very good. So I think that is number one. Number two is being absolutely clear what you are looking for. Because I know I have my biasness. I know I like certain ways how stories are told. And that is a problem by itself, right? So in any company, you have a very clear, for lack of a better word, matrix on what skills you want to look for and whatnot. I think always go back to the drawing board and match people against that. And then you can clearly say what's going well, what's not going well. You're removing yourself away from biases, but you are talking based on experiences. So for me, it's always going back to that Bible and everybody else, because the mindset of you owning a talent is wrong in the first place. So it's not my decision on what happens to the person or whatnot, but what do we as an organization, what do we as a whole team think if this person's potential is down the road. So I would shift that mindset a bit more, because it's not.
So it's not just about what you think.
Yeah, it's not. Right? It's really not. Yeah.
Similar to Dave as well. So I would have known what are some of the preconceived bias I would have towards a person based on, for example, the mistake she or he has done before, or the impression that we have of the person. But whenever we have conversations, like to review performance or anything, I need to be aware that I have these biases. and go into the conversation with an open mind. Okay, I want to get to know, I want to listen to this person to find out what he or she has to say, and to really see how he or she has grown and what he wants to develop in. So that is something that I have been practicing. Like recently, we have a volunteer who have not committed to her role for about for a while, like for 3 months. I couldn't contact, like couldn't reach out to her, and then she said she want to commit to become volunteer again. I'm like, okay, I know like anyone who were in my shoes would not take her because of the commitment issues, but I want to hear her out. I want to give her a chance. So I think it's about identifying our biases and really going in with a fresh mind to listen intently, to give them a chance.
What both of you describe is actually the space model. One of the component that I absolutely adore on that space model is to write down the characteristic of a person that you think would be perfect for the role, and then challenge that mindset, because trends and all of that. So if you're thinking like, I don't know, Jeff Bezos, then you're gonna have like characteristics that are similar to this trend, and then like go against that, which honestly I find so hard to do. But yeah,
it's a tiring exercise, but once you do it a couple of times, you get used to it.
Correct. It takes time. So we were talking about communication a while ago, and this is one of my favorite question to ask. Like if I'm at a party and I'm trying to get to know someone, this is the question I would ask. What is your communication pet peeve at work? Like what would you, like if someone does something, you're like, oh, it's killing me, and like I think everyone has one of those.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. What about you,
The first thing that comes to mind is passive aggression.
Do you have any examples? Like recently?
Tell us a story.
I like to membawang a little bit.
Like I know this person doesn't want to do this job, but he didn't want to reject outright. And then he would find excuses to be not able to attend meetings or not attend to it, so that in the hope that I would then assign it to somebody else. But so I would prefer you to be honest and just come to me, have a direct confrontation, instead of doing little things like this. That's just one example I can think of for now.
So passive aggressiveness.
In the current context, most of us working in the virtual setting.
Yeah.
So one of my biggest annoyance is people not turning on their camera. Firstly, it's a personal thing.
I hear you.
It's a really personal thing, because I know some people turning on the camera is anxiety by itself. I get that. But for me, it's annoying when I can't see your lips move and your face move, and I read all those things, right? And for me, those cues are important. And them not turning on the camera, even though my camera has been on for the last half an hour, it's like
disrespect.
Hashtag disrespect. Totally. I think it's about wanting that connection, even at work. We talked about this before. Elements of personal communication. So one of my most favorite facts to share is up to 93% of what makes you effective when you communicate with someone is your nonverbals. It's like the way you move your hands, the way you move your face, your eyebrows, and those eye contact, your voice intonation. So 93% of what makes you an effective communicator is how you say things, not what you actually said. So I think it's the most human, natural thing that you kind of like crave that nonverbal connection with someone. Because when I talk to someone on the phone, I think miscommunication is easier to happen when you can't see someone's face.
There are some people, when I talk to them, they're just like a TV reporter, and it's you wouldn't know whether they are
but at least this person just tak ada perasaan, right?
Yeah, okay, perhaps,
as opposed to wondering, did I say something wrong? Is this person mad at me? Like, are you annoyed? Like, do you have somewhere else to be? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
like, you
completely.
can at least have that. When you talk about communication pet peeves, and once you realize that you have all of these pet peeves, then you started doing things a little differently.
Yes.
So now I'm interested to hear, what are some of your best tips and tricks when it comes to when you talk to someone? Like, I personally like to do a little bit more to make sure this person know that I'm listening, I'm paying attention, to kind of like make that communication that much more effective. So what would your best tip be? One thing that I always do is this nodding.
What's going on inside?
I found that nodding is like one of the most powerful gestures ever. If you're arguing at home with your husband, with your wife, with your partner, and they're like pissed about something, and you just look at them and you nod. As they speak, they'll come down a little. I'm not joking. Like at work, if someone comes and talk to me, I'll make it a point to nod, because I think for a lot of people, they also almost, like we talked about this in the beginning, almost never get like recognition or what. So I think it's like comforting as to nod as you know, someone is talking to you. And that is something that I will always do, because I think it's my way of saying I hear you, I understand, but of course then you have to actually listen. But I think the nodding is a very powerful gesture in terms of communication.
So I thought about that, nodding, and the simple yes, okay. All that will help diffuse tensions, but I'm also thinking in a non-tension environment, right? If I walk to someone or they walk to me and they need to communicate something, I think being attentive, just listening and understanding is very, very key. Sometimes my brain goes faster than my mouth. My mouth goes faster than my brain, whichever,
it's
right?
just not in sync.
And it's not necessary. I think I'm saying it, but I'm not necessarily saying it. So I expect my listener to question me back and just ask me what the heck I'm talking about, right? Similarly, I will do the same. I will ask you, hey, give me the whole picture when you're telling me something, because then I know I'm giving you my space, my time, and my full focus to understand what's happening. So I think just truly listening gets diluted a little bit further. I can't really say whether someone's truly listening or not, but it really depends on their response. If their response is in sync, it's there. If they're talking about something else, then no, that's not what they're saying. It ties back to what we're talking about, what's communication skills earlier. So that for me is really annoying, but I try to be the mediator to match these conversations, but also make sure I give full attention when I'm listening. So of course, how I show that I'm listening is really just hands not on keyboard, for example, and just look. And what I started trying to do was like just look at the person chest to chest, and the guy starts moving away, right? But but that's what I attempt to do, at least, to really give full attention in that particular situation and repeat back what I've heard to make sure it's clear, because so many different things that's happening. You just want to be really, really sharp.
So yours is essentially listen.
Just attentive,
Be attentive to others. I like that.
I think both of you have mentioned what I had in mind just now. In addition to listening attentively or nodding, another thing that I practice is repeating their last words, echoing them.
Okay, that's
I think that from my experience at least, a lot of people, they like that, because it felt like you are listening to them and allow them to elaborate more. It gives them space to share more. So that is something that I find. I think I read it from a book or somewhere, and I started practicing it, and then I see that the person that I talk to always walk away feeling good, because they get a chance to share about the things that they want to talk about, and they have a listener.
Like generally as human beings, when we feel heard, we feel seen, we feel recognized, I think we feel good about things, like generally. But the part that you mentioned, right, about like repeating that last word, I learned this last year. It is about when you disagree with someone or you don't understand what someone is saying, instead of saying, sorry Dave, can you explain that? Or Shui, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by A, B, and C that you just said? Something I learned is you repeat that word. If someone is upset about something, like they say, like you, I don't know, didn't do the dishes. I was like, dishes? They're like, yeah, in the sink from last night. I did it yesterday. Like automatically they will go. So what I like about it is I don't have to kind of like think of all the questions I want to ask in the most sensitive way, because sometimes you just want to have a quick response, right? And then you don't want to say, what do you mean I didn't do the dishes? Then it sounds defensive. Then it might escalate into a conversation. But if you just say, dishes? like the conversation goes. Like I like doing that.
Yeah. It's actually one of the negotiation skills as well.
Yeah. so far in this communication, in this like conversation, I have a feeling that our leadership style is quite similar. So my question is, if your team members are talking about you without you being there, what words would you wish to use to describe you as a leader?
You need to be able to flex, and I think all of us know that, right? I've seen people who fail because they only have one leadership muscle. That said, my general style that I gravitate towards is a bit more affiliative. What that means is I tend to want to get everybody on the table, everybody needs to hear the issue out, everybody pitches a point of view, and as a cabinet, everybody agrees or disagrees. And when we walk out the room, we are still a cabinet. We say the same thing. It's a big issue for me if people walk out the room and they whisper, actually, yeah, we made this decision, but actually I don't agree lah, you know.
I just didn't want to say it.
Yeah, you know, especially when they go back to their teams and they want to be the nice cop to their teams, right? And they say, oh, it's the leadership team and you know, HR is this. I disagree, but you know, we just have to follow. It annoys me completely. So I don't want to be that person at all, and I try to build a strong affiliation. When you come out the room, we should be one voice. That's something that I try to be very clear. But I wish people talk about me. This is sensitive, but I hope to be inside. I hope to be the person that can connect the dots and hopefully say, yeah, maybe we can try X, Y, Z, right? And experiment. Where I am right now, if I'm able to do that, I think it's a big win. Yeah.
So affiliative, but the word I was also thinking about when you were talking is inclusive.
Yes, definitely.
Like a very inclusive type of leadership, and you want to be insightful.
Yes.
Love that.
First word that came to my mind was authentic. Yeah, I think both of you are authentic leader as well. Yeah, so why authentic? Because I want to be real, like I'm real, like I'm open to suggestions, I want to be inclusive and I listen. It's all about people first for me. So when I think about my leadership style, whether it is in my non-profit or in my work setting, why we practice active listening, because we want to hear them out, we want to know what problem they are facing, what they're going through, and for me it's about helping them solve problems. So people first, authentic, and someone who doesn't give up. Yeah, when I've set my mind to do something.
Determined, resilient.
Yeah.
So insightful, authentic, reasonable. And at some point in our lives, we were students, right? And some of our listeners here are students as well. What would be that one thing you would do as a student in your day-to-day routine to make sure that you learn all of these things that you've learned the hard way when you've started working? What would you do differently as a student?
Talk to as many people from diverse background as possible, because that will refine your skills, your communication skill, the way you talk to different people, how do you approach difficult or different conversations.
Right. So diversity in terms of the people you hang out with, your friends, the type of activity.
The type of topics that you talk about.
Like people these days do a lot of that, but on social media. Do you think it will have the same impact? Like actually doing that face-to-face, or?
I think it's more important to do face-to-face, because as you mentioned just now, communication, it's not just what you say, but how you say it. That is communication. Yeah.
I think it's not, and if I may contrast with you a little bit, I don't think it's just talking to people and then learning from all that. I think people may really need strong role models, and it can be their parents and all that, fine. But I think role modeling doesn't just mean seeing all the good. I think role modeling is also understanding all that's the opposite of that as well. Really seeing someone as a whole, and then saying, yeah, I love to be person XYZ in this traits because of this reason. Or I don't necessarily like this and I want to shift that. But not just seeing the good. It has to be balanced. So just to build on what you're saying, Shuri, I think yes, go talk to people and all that and get a role model image of how you want to grow and what kind of values you want to bring. But don't just look at the good. Look as a whole on what a person is. Yeah.
I love what you both just said, because I think diversity is really important, and had I gotten more exposure to different cultural beliefs, different lived experiences, I think I would be a lot wiser. Yeah. So if you're a student, make friends with a diverse set of people, consume diverse content, have role models, and understand that there are, multiple sides to human beings. We all make mistakes. And I think that's why personal growth is sort of like one of my most favorite things to talk about, because like if you were to ask me like mistakes I've made as a leader just like 2 years ago, I think it would like I could write a book about it, but that journey of becoming better, I think that's something that I think we should celebrate a bit more as a society. We're going towards the end of our conversation today, so I wanted to end with a positive note. So 2024, what do you think would be like a trend?
I'm not sure if it's my own biases because I'm in tech industry, but I think the ability to solve problems, to process data more efficiently, or the technological skills, AI, computer science are getting more important. It's emerging. But I'm not sure if I'm biased because I'm in this industry. I know we are constantly hiring for people who can process data faster, write an algorithm to do things better.
Culturally, I think we see a lot of influences, whether it's DEI, ESG, and whatnot, and it's kind of like driving the strategy and the outlook of businesses. I don't necessarily think.
You forgot SDG.
Fine, SDG, right? I don't think those will hold water everywhere like how it is going to be now. I think the mindset of risk management and balancing pro and cons is going to come a lot stronger. I think there's a balance on purpose versus end outcomes or short-term outcomes is going to be a lot more stronger. So on that part, we talk about problem solving, we talk about risk management, and people being able to evaluate norms, cultures, priorities is going to be a lot more stronger. So just because a company has strong ESG or strong DI, it's not going to be sufficient anymore. So balance. Yeah.
I like that. So last question I'm going to ask both of you is, what would be your best advice for someone who is looking to uplift themselves, get that promotion they always wanted, start their journey of, I don't know, like there's a certain ideals and milestones and goals that people want to achieve, right? What would your best advice be that can help people achieve those things?
I'm just going to summarize what you guys said in my answer. I think the networks are the most important. When you talk with the right people, you understand what they want and how you want to grow. I think that's going to be absolutely key. Careers today as well, it's not going to be vertical. It's going to be quite everywhere. I think you guys, both you ladies are also an example on how careers are not unilateral. So my advice to people is understand what that truly means. Balance chasing money versus chasing experiences. There's the depth versus breadth of careers, right? And it's a bit too technical, but speak to people how you can actually grow your careers beyond just your conventional thought process. Do not follow our parents' model of careers because that doesn't hold water anymore. And lastly, follow the habits that you talk about. I think the habits you talk about and consuming different materials is very, very key. It's not something that I've done when I was a lot younger. Probably would have done one thing I would have changed as well for myself. But where I am today is also because of networks. A lot of networks.
Yep.
Don't just be the only network person and all talk and do no work. All right. So make sure you do good work as well. But like you said, good work alone will not take you sufficiently or wherever you want to go. So understand yourself, understand where you want to go, and listen to people around you. Yeah.
Like that. She?
I think to top it off, for me, purpose is very important. Understanding your values and connecting to people who share similar values. So extension to how you can network. And for you to get the promotion or for you to move up the corporate ladders, I think what I've learned is helping others to solve the toughest problems. What is the toughest problems that your boss or your colleagues wants to solve? So eat the camel first. That's a saying. Yeah. So for me, that is how it can get you further.
Yeah. So network, balance it out with good work.
Yeah.
And if I can summarize everything that you say, is essentially like people centric. And if I can add one more thing on top of that, is document all of that.
Why?
Wow.
Because if you
Didn't see that
want,
coming.
like, documenting is very, very important.
Okay.
I wish I have a journal from when I was 15,
Yeah.
or just like that first job that I had. Like there's so many people who have taught me like a gazillion things that I remember in like bits and pieces right now. So I think documenting is important because you
Okay.
can always look back and all of that. But if you want a promotion at the workplace, it's all about documenting your value. So
Yeah.
I think don't underestimate the power of documenting it. That's
you're right.
really, really, really important. So this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, Shui, and thank you, Dave, for making time for this. I've really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. So hopefully there'll be a next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
and
Anne. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. for
all
having
right.
me.
See everyone in the next episode.